Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto Black Chakra Chains, Chunin exams harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by MACMAN3679 and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Hokage no Sato. The rain was pouring the night the orphanage kicked him out. The night of the Kikbi festival in the village hidden in the leaves. Naruto Uzumaki is 4 years old and hated by almost every adult within the ninja village. He does not know why he is hated, for him hatred is as the sun in the sky, there, and why it is there is an irrelevant question. Tonight, he was kicked out of the orphanage and told never to return. That happened about 4 hours ago, and it was the nicest activity to occur this night. The orphanage threw him out very close to sunset. Naruto wandered around as the sun sank closer to the horizon. The people were different tonight than normal. When he studied their faces, the hatred was there as always, but most of the times before tonight it was coupled with indifference. Not this night. On this night when Naruto considered the faces of the civilians of Konoha, something else was in their eyes. He did not know what to call it, but somewhere in the dark recesses of his mind, he knew that tonight, harm was coming his way. A day star disappeared to the other side of the planet, indifferent to what its disappearance would cause. The revelation that harm was on its way had lent wings to Naruto as he raced for the Hokage tower. He never made it. The journey from the orphanage to the most powerful places in the village was epic for his 4-year-old legs. He made it as far as the park that was a third of the way there when a crowd numbering 14 surrounded the last Uzumaki in Konoha. Made up mostly of civilians, there were some ninja, all from civilian families, sprinkled into the mix, though none higher than Chunin. The rain was now coming down in sheets and the lightning providing all the illumination there would be tonight. It began with the crowd closing in on the doomed little boy. They began to shove him, though that soon turned to punches, which knocked him to the ground. Soon they began taking turns kicking and stomping on him. The only thing Naruto could do was cover his head, close his eyes, and pray it would end soon, one way or another. Mindscape. Naruto's eyes open, blurry for a second. He is resting in what appeared to be liquid of some kind. He gazed up at the ceiling that had pipes and valves intermittently. He sat up and looked around. The walls appeared to be concrete with interlocking stone slabs. Naruto did not know where he was. No matter where he sat, he was relieved to be away from that mob. Naruto heard heavy breathing coming from down the corridor and debated with himself whether to follow the sound or not. He had just gotten out of a bad situation. He did not need to go looking for another one. Yet, whomever was making that sound, even if they were as bad as the mob, would at least know a way out of here. Uncertainly, Naruto traveled through the passageway. Out of the gloom huge metallic columns came into view. They were obviously a part of some cage, but meant to retain something huge. In the center of the section of bars, a weird drawing on a metallic plate could be found. Naruto stood gazing at the drawing. He could not remember, but he has seen it somewhere before. There was a puff of air, like a small inhalation, then a deeper mouthful, followed by a long blowout. Naruto felt the gust of air stream past him, back down the hallway. From the gloom of the cage, a voice snapped out at him, "So, my container has come to speak with me, at last." Naruto scrambled back into the wall, well away from the cage. Naruto stood as far as he could get from the cage, but he still had to tilt his head to look up at the largest animal he in his 4 years of life has ever seen. That it was a fox was obvious. Plucking up his courage, "Who are you?" The fox considered the boy before it. He doesn't know where in his mind, since its imprisonment the Kikbi no Kitsune has witnessed the animosity the village had toward its container. Confusing the container for the contained was a mark of ignorance and condemning a kid like Naruto a form of cowardice. Kikbi really did not care about Naruto, except for the fact that if Naruto died, Kikbi would die as well. Good thing nobody outside the Hokage and the elders when they were still in power knew that or the boy and I would be dead a long time ago. Thus, with a small expenditure of its own type of Bijuu chakra called Yoki, Kikbi no Kitsune would heal the wounds of its jailer. "I cannot tell you my name. I have been trapped here for so long I have forgotten it." Naruto looked at the face of the fox, but could not tell if the fox was lying or telling the truth. "How long was that?" Naruto asked. The giant's fox head drooped. "I've been trapped since your first Hokage, I believe." Naruto's eyes widened, though he did not know much about the history of the village. He knew enough to know the Shodaime was Old Man Tsurutobi Sensei, the third Hokage. Who was at least the oldest person in the village. "Wow, you're older than Old Man Tsurutobi," Naruto yelled. "You've been here since then?" The fox's own eyes widened. "Has it been so long?" it whispered. Naruto looked upon the fox in sympathy. "How were you trapped down here in the first place?" Naruto asked. It was a man with red eyes. Then my mind was cloudy, all my thoughts were muddled. "The next thing I know, I'm here trapped in this cage," the fox said with a growl. "Is there any way to open the cage and let you out, Kitsune-san?" Naruto asked in resolution. "Why would you want to know that, kid?" the fox asked, a fleeting hope entering its voice. Naruto looked at Kikbi like he was looking at an idiot because, I'm gonna free you, of course. Kikbi rose to its full height. Why would you do that for me? We have only just met, it asked, doubt in its voice. Naruto nodded. I'm not doing it out of the kindness of my heart, he said, I'm doing it because we can help each other out. You help me, I help you. The fox grunted, he's not as gullible as I thought. What do you want to let me out of this cage? It asked warily. I don't want anything except a ride out of this village, Naruto declared. The fox was taken aback. So many times humans have only ever thought of it as a battery, demon, or a weapon. No one has ever asked it to help them escape. Well, death is a sort of escape, especially from the kind of life this kid has had. Deal, kid, set me free, and you will escape your life in this kami-forsaken village. It extended a claw the size of a tree trunk through the bars of its cage. Naruto neared the cage, took the tip of the claw, and shook. Well, more like his arm shook, the claw did not budge. If Kikbi allowed as much it would have bisected the kid. Now, how do I free you? Naruto looked up at the bars inspecting them for weaknesses. Kikbi raised his claw up to the metallic plate with the paper with the drawing on it. This is known as the 8 trigram seal, it is what keeps me locked away, it explained. Naruto nodded, you cannot live in a ninja village and not know what seals are. If I pull this seal off it'll free you, Naruto asked for confirmation. Yes, the fox replied, just reach over and peel it like a sticker, it said eyeing the little boy intensely. And, do not worry, kid, the demon fox thought, as soon as you free me, I shall take revenge for both of us upon the village. I shall strike down with terrible vengeance and furious anger those who have sought to destroy us. When I am finished not one stone in the village shall stand atop another. And, I shall leave alive only those who treated you with respect. Naruto reached up and took hold of a corner. The seal flared bright then, flashing brightly causing him to flinch back. 2 pairs of arms grabbed him and roughly pulled him away from the seal. He struggled valiantly and the Kikbi roared in frustration at being so close to freedom only to have it stolen away. Naruto looked at the 2 holding him, he believed it was another group coming to beat him again. Until he heard what they were saying to him, words he had heard before but never directed at him. Not so fast, my son, said a rich loving bass. Oh no you don't, baby boy, a clear warm feminine tenor added. Those words stopped his resistance immediately as he looked and saw a man and woman holding him by the shoulders. He only recognized the man as his idol, the 4th Hokage, Namikaze Minato. For a second Naruto thought he was looking in a mirror because the Namikaze looked quite a bit like him, except for the eye color, which were blue, he had spiky blonde hair and his face was without whisker marks. Minato also had jaw-length bangs framing either side of his face, only the shape of the face was different. He saw the face whenever he looked at Hokage Rock. His attire consisted of a standard Konoha uniform with 2 bands on both of his sleeves, a green flak jacket, blue forehead protector, and blue sandals. The 4th Hokage also wore a short-sleeved long white haori over his normal attire, closed in the front by a thin orange rope. The haori was decorated by red flame-like motifs on the edges. Lord 4th Hokage, what are you doing here? Is that any way to speak to your dad, Naruto, the woman asked, a slight smile on her face. Which brought Naruto's head whipping around to stare at the woman. It was there that he found the rest of his face, including his violet eyes, still without birthmarks. She had a slender but feminine build, fair skin, violet eyes, and tomato red hair that reached her ankles, and shoulder-length strands that framed both sides of her face, and a black clip that parted her hair to the left. She wore a high-collared, sleeveless blouse under a long, loose-fitting dress with a wristband on her left wrist and standard shinobi sandals. Naruto's head kept swiveling between the 2 people holding him away from the cage. The 4th Hokage is my father. Yes, Naruto, and I'm your mother, Uzumaki Kushina, the woman answered. Now, we do not have much time, so I will tell you the story of the 9-tailed fox and the sacred duty we, as Jinchuriki, bear. Your father will tell you about the events of the night of your birth. That was where Naruto found out about his heritage and who his parents were. The fox did not lie to him even once, it merely omitted certain parts that would have changed Naruto's opinion of Kikbi no Kitsune. They told him they were in his mindscape and how it worked, including the time difference. The longer they talked to him, the weaker they became. What's happening to you, Mom? He looked from her to Minato, Dad. We are just chakra constructs, created by the real Minato before his death, the avatar of his dad, explained, the chakra we were given is fading, we can't remain with you for much longer. No, no, Naruto yelled frantically, trying to hold them, I need you, your help, you can't come into my life like this and just leave, again. Naruto's pupils changed becoming vertical slits, like a cat's or fox's, and an orange-reddish aura infused his body. He lashed out arresting the disappearance of his parental avatars, then behind them a blue fire came racing up from the passageways and captured them. The energies merged, becoming violet and enshrouding them for several seconds. When they emerged, they were full and substantial, appearing even more solid than when they came out of the seal. They looked at each other and themselves, feeling their own bodies. Kushina groped and goosed herself, she even gave her own backside a smack. Their eyes were wide and Naruto lay slumped to the floor as whatever he had done took a lot out of him. Kushina looked from her son to her husband, the question in her eyes. Minato looked back in wonder, we appear to have been brought back to life, dear. Our son was somehow able to access his own chakra and the Kyuubi's yoki got them to merge and infuse that energy with our own chakra. There must have been enough of our own chakra left to allow it to bring us back. Minato put 2 fingers on his wrist, we have a pulse. He brought his hand up to his face and exhaled, then stuck a finger in his mouth, we breathe and our bodies are moist. We are alive here, as if reborn into a new world. They gazed in wonder at the boy they brought into the world, who had apparently just returned the favor. They would get a second chance to raise their son. What they did not understand was why he would need them. Naruto should be living the life of a hero within the village, which was what Minato intended when he sealed Kyuubi into his son. That was Minato's intention at least, however, Kushina knew some of the realities of being a Jinchuriki. Their son was out completely, their only source of information was Kyuubi. Since Kushina was its container before her son, she decided to get some answers from the one other source in the room. It was also time to deal some judicious punishment for almost killing their son. Minato turned to his wife and nodded before heading over to check on his son. As Kushina stalked ominously into Kyuubi's cell. The mindscape was their world now and Naruto was its master. It was an interesting dynamic, as far as Minato knew no other parent they knew could tell what their children were thinking. Of course, no other beings have ever been brought back to life or a semblance of it, at least no beings they personally knew. Meanwhile, at her husband's nod, Naruto's mother entered the cage. She looked up at it while cracking her knuckles ominously. Now, fuzzball, you are going to tell me about my son's life. Reality, Naruto lay moaning as the crowd beat him and beat him. It was only the healing factor provided by Kyuubi and his own Uzumaki resiliency that kept him alive. The Anbu and Uchiha police force, Up Force, were seconds away. The Hokage had been watching the whole village when she noticed a disturbance in the park. She had been using the crystal ball jutsu and witnessed what was happening with disbelieving eyes. Her own people beating upon a small child, some were even ninja, who should know better. While the antipathy of the village toward its Jinchuriki was expected, this was a blatant attempt on Naruto's life. She had immediately dispatched a squad, 6 ninja of Anbu, and someone else must have alerted the Up Force. Up Force was officially called the Konoha Military Police Department but made up exclusively of one clan, the Uchiha. They were called by many names. Uchiha Police Force, Uchiha Police, UPF, but the most common name for them was Up Force. They enforced the laws of Konoha, protecting the village and citizens, civilian and ninja alike, from the criminals of the village. Ninja often handled criminals on their missions and could have do the same here in Konoha, but while here in the village most shinobi and kunoichi preferred to let Up Force handle it. Anbu and UPF caught sight of each other, though not a requirement, many Up Force ninja came from Anbu before fulfilling their clan duty and thus knew how to work together. The two forces that ensured peace and security arraigned in Konohagakure no Sado came inside of the mob. Up Force moved to encircle the crowd from the north, Anbu deployed to the south. They were poised to strike when something happened. In the blink of an eye a pair of chains shot from the battered bloody little boy, skewering 2 of his assailants in the neck. The Up Force and Anbu turned to see Naruto on his feet, eyes blazing in vengeance. Another pair of chains whipped around to wrap themselves around the necks of 2 chunin. The chains lifted the struggling ninja off the ground, wringing their necks like chickens, then began using their dead bodies as bludgeons. These chunin, while alive, weighed about 150 and 125 pounds. Naruto's chains were flinging them around like dolls. Naruto took out another 4 assailants while holding his makeshift weapons, then threw them into another pair, delivering a ballistic level of lethal force. The last 2, seeing that their victim was not as helpless as they had hoped, tried to run, only to run headlong into the 2 official security forces of the Leaf Village. They surrendered to the Konoha forces rather than face the wrath of a demon. Meanwhile at Hokage Tower, the 5th Hokage had watched the whole thing. When it happened, 5th Hokage, Mikoto Uchiha, Aka, Devil Woman, because of the power of her Katenjutsu and a certain implacable ruthlessness that counselors, clients, and the other Kage have come to respect, almost dropped the crystal ball. She remembered a similar technique, exactly 4 years ago, by Mikoto's best friend, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, just before she died. In a fugue state, the Hokage set the ball down, Anbu, on me, she ordered curtly, before stepping out of the window. Back at the scene, the rain finally stopped, the security forces of Konoha were securing the area, and Naruto was getting checked out by medic ninja. Naruto lay unmoving on the stretcher, except his chest heaving like a bellows. His body was exhausted after expending so much chakra reviving his parents. The chains had retracted into his body, while not draining on his chakra were still physically draining upon his skin and bones body. Only 2 of his assailants had survived his retaliation, they were in custody, awaiting transport to the gal. "How are you feeling, Naruto?" his mother asked him within his mind. "Still, tired mom, like I have been running all day instead of just a few hours," he replied. "Running in fear and running for other reasons is different, son," his father supplied. Naruto nodded as he listened to the revived Minato, not to mention, returning us to life, in a manner of speaking, and then using the Uzumaki bloodline limit. "Adamantine chains, to protect yourself. I think that would have exhausted me and your mother in our prime." Naruto's father continued explaining his thoughts. Kushina was nodding, adding her own observations. "They may not use any chakra, but the chains still take a toll on physical endurance, they're the equivalent of swinging your fists for a punch." After recovering from the exhaustion in his mind and after Kyuubi was punished for manipulating Naruto, they talked and taught Naruto how to control his mindscape. He altered the scape to make it a more pleasant environment. He altered it to mimic the Konoha forest, it was the only landscape he knew, and formed his parents a home to their specifications. They learned that food produced in his mind was as nourishing to them as food in the outer world is to Naruto. In addition to Naruto's actual memory which he would develop, Minato and Kushina would record his day from waking to sleep and create an easily accessible archive. Minato and Kushina would share Naruto's senses and act as a secondary memory archive. That would be their daily task, outside of training him. They would train him in their ways of the ninja. Kushina would train him in Uzumaki Kenjutsu, Taijutsu, Fuinjutsu, Kekkei Genkai, chakra control, and other traditions of Uzumaki. Minato would train him in Namikaze Taijutsu, Fuinjutsu, including the Hiraishin, and help complete the Rasengan and other Namikaze traditions. Both would teach him ninjutsu they knew, depending upon Naruto's nature affinity. They made 3 covenants while talking to their son. They promised the training would be harsh and they would be tough on him, but it would benefit him. They get to see all his thoughts and memories, Naruto could not keep secrets from them, therefore they promised never to keep secrets from him. They promised to raise him with love, whether outside his mind or in, they were his parents, and expected Naruto to listen to them. There was a disturbance near the edge of the park, Naruto turned to look, and there standing on the edge of the park, was the Hokage. Kushina gasped, "Koto-chan, is the Hokage of the village." Kushina remembered seeing her in some of Naruto's memories, but never paid attention to anything beyond how it pertained to her son. "Yes," Naruto confirmed, "I don't know when she became Hokage, but she has been making changes," he explained. The Kodo demoted the civil council to below the clan council, they are now only there to administer the non-ninja citizens. They are the bureaucracy that keeps Konoha running. They collect the taxes from civilian businesses, but no longer set them. Process applications for starting a business and collect processing fees, again they do not set the fees. They run the day-to-day procedures that keep the village economy healthy and administer the civil court for issues not of a criminal nature. They answer to the clan council, who enforce the Hokage's laws and decrees. The clan council also acts as a criminal court, the only civil matters they hear are those concerning ninja, mediate disputes between clans, and any other shinobi business, including the academy. They oversee the education of prospective young ninja, it is tough now to graduate, but the caliber of genin had been raised according to many ninja, and even some civilians. Minato was laughing his ass off, the civil council were a thorn in his side from the time he took office until his death. The civil council is essential to the health of the village, since they allowed ninja to be free to conduct ninja matters. Minato never thought of demotion. Naruto continued, "That's not all the changes since your deaths. Old man, Danzo was caught with some kind of root and killed for something called sedition." "Sedition?" Minato asked. "Yeah, that's the word, sedition. Anyway, she said she couldn't trust them anymore and had the elders retired, she's been looking for their replacements ever since. So far only old man Sarutobi was used. So, Danzo was still running root right under my nose." Minato explained to Naruto what root was and why it was officially cancelled. "How is it you know so much about the village, you are only 4, his mother asked. "Before tonight, most people would pretend I wasn't there and talk as if I wasn't. I remembered what they said," Naruto explained. Their entire conversation took place at the speed of thought, the Hokage still at the entrance to the park was just starting over toward Naruto. As she neared him, Mikoto could not get over how frail he was, as if he had not eaten in some days, and the rags that passed for clothes on his thin frame. The orphanage she had placed him in was reputed to be the best in the leaf, she tried to stay abreast of his condition through reports. Uchiha Mikoto had tears in her eyes when she looked at her godson. All civilian advocates, who were members of the civil council, were responsible for a specific district in Konoha, and the Hokage specifically tasked the advocate of the district, which contained the orphanage Naruto lived in, with making sure of his well-being. Mikoto received weekly reports that exclaimed, "The health and happiness of Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto." Apparently, she had been lied to by advocate Ashiro. The orphanage where Naruto lived received a stipend from his parents' estate to take care of his needs. Up force lieutenant, she roared. Uchiha Shisui, 19, shunshin to her side. Yes, Hokage-sama. I want the administrator of Oakleaf Children's Home in this park in 30 minutes, she commanded. That would give the civilian plenty of time to get here. At once, Hokage-sama, he shunshinned away. Raven, she barked. A short Anbu ninja with a raven mask, 11, appeared next to her. Yes, Hokage-sama. Please, ask the leader of the Senju to come here, then go get Advocate Ashiro. I have some pointed questions for him, have him wait outside my office. Ask Ibiki to wait with him, she commanded. As you command, Hokage-sama, Raven replied. Makoto moved to sit next to her godson. She could not look at him, feeling so guilty for failing her best friend. She read the statement Naruto gave the Up-Force and Anbu commanders, but had questions of her own. Naruto, please, tell me what happened tonight, from beginning to end. Therefore, he told her everything that happened outside of his head tonight. His eviction from the orphanage, his perception of the change of the citizens' reception of him. His attempt to make it to Hokage Tower when the attack started. He told her how he defended himself from the attack with the chains. Those chains are what I want to talk about, Naruto. They remind me of what, Koto-chan, Naruto asked whispering for her ears only. The Hokage's eyes went wide, her mouth agape as she looked at him. He was staring straight ahead, only peeking up at her to see if she understood. Only 3 people have ever called me, Koto-chan, and then, only as a code, when we couldn't communicate in the open, and of those 3, only 2 were yet living. The only others who knew of it were her teammates and their sensei. Makoto looked up as an older Kunoichi shunshinned into the park. Tsunade of the Senju, member of the clan council, and administrator of the Konoha Shinobi Hospital, also the most knowledgeable physician of the elemental nations. Quickly suppressing her expression, excuse me, Naruto, Makoto stood up face expressionless. Making her way to her sensei, Makoto Uchiha began addressing her mentor. Suna-chan, would you do me a favor and give Naruto here a checkup? Tsunade nodded, of course, Koto-chan, she answered in the same manner, remembering her team's mode of address when open communication was impossible. It meant they needed to speak in private. Tsunade's eyebrow arched, using our team code to let me know she wanted to speak privately. She could order me to her office, which is the most secure facility in Hidden Leaf Village, that means it's team business, not village. Tsunade began channeling green medical chakra, then passed it through Naruto's body. Her initial surprise at her student's mode of address was erased in shock at the condition of this little boy's body. When was the last time you ate something, son? It was rhetorical, her chakra told her exactly how long ago he ate. She leaned forward and pulled Naruto into a hug. Then turned to a nearby UPF officer, pointing at her, you, go to Ichiraku's ramen stand and get a large bowl of miso, UPF can build a Senju estate. The UPF officer turned to the Hokage, who nodded her confirmation. Lady Uchiha drew close, eyes questioning the doctor, what can you tell me about his condition, sensei? Tsunade remained kneeling before Naruto, staring into his eyes. Naruto was loving all the attention, he rarely got any but negative. Other than the fact he hasn't eaten for 3 days, she said looking up at Makoto directly, he's very healthy, not even a bruise. We can thank his tenant for that, she said, quietly. Makoto turned to Naruto, I have failed you, Kushina-chan, she wrapped Naruto in her arms and quietly allowed her tears to fall. I thought I was doing the right thing for you, Naruto. I have been lazy in my duty to you as my godson, Naruto. I thought my trust was well placed in those I detailed to take care of you, I was wrong. Makoto sobbed into his chest, the Anbu and Up-Force ninja, pointedly ignoring the leader's weak moment. It's okay, Hokage-sama, even a kid like me understands you have a whole village to care for, you don't have time to take care of me, Naruto said in forgiveness, returning her hug. The UPF officer returned shortly with his ramen and set it before Naruto, whose nose twitched at the smell of food. He set to and devoured this food of the gods in minutes. He let out a contented sigh and burped, which made him blush and said, excuse me, ladies, causing the women to smile. Thank you for your consideration, Naruto, Makoto said back, we'll have to find you a better place to live. Once I'm done, she turned her head. As Uchiha Shisui entered the park, he indicated the person the Hokage wanted to see was behind, getting checked for weapons and other deadly implements, taking out the garbage, she hissed. Turning back to the head of the Senju clan, please, conceal Naruto out of the way while I attend to this, sensei, the Hokage ordered the clan head. Tsunade had been briefed on the reason Naruto was in the park, it's a good thing I ain't the Hokage, I would just as soon kill the bitch as listen to her excuses. She took Naruto back behind a brick wall and sat him down next to her. They could not see what was going on, but they could hear everything. They listened as footsteps came timidly up the path. Ah, Inoue-kun, welcome, please have a seat. Another bout of shuffling later and a different voice, one Naruto knew quite well. Thank you, Hokage-sama, the voice of a middle-aged woman replied. The voice sounded different than it normally would. To Naruto it was hesitant and soft, usually when directed at him, it was either raised in anger or it hissed with venom. The word you're looking for, son, is meek, Minato's voice growled in his mind. Kushina was off in the back of his mind, ranting, which she had been doing since hearing how emaciated Naruto's body was. She was using words Naruto should not be listening to. He could also hear Kikbi whimpering at the anger of his former host. It's how bullies act around their betters, but the old bat better start covering her fat ass. I remember, Mikoto, she's my maternal cousin and can see right through ass kissers. Even as a genin, she could see through any bullshit flung in her direction. Minato was not much better than his wife after hearing how the village chose to honor one of their heroes, his son. He was just better at concealing his feelings than Naruto's mother and was not as quick to forgive the current Hokage as his son. He was also wondering where Naruto's godfather, Jiraiya, was. If Mikoto could not look after Minato's son, then Minato-sensei should have. There was a long silence between the two women. The reason I called you here tonight, a prominent citizen was attacked tonight and I'm here to clean up the mess. I was in the district and decided to take your weekly report in person. Mikoto's voice was disarming. She was waiting to see what lies, if any, the old woman would try to tell her. So, how is Naruto tonight? It's his birthday after all. Turns 4 today, did you know that? No, I did not know that. I've never put much stock in celebrating birthdays. No sense in accepting praise for doing nothing, but growing 1 year older, it coddles children if you do that, Inoue said, speaking down to the Hokage. This is where Naruto begins to rant in his mind. What a big liar, just last week she threw a huge birthday for one of the older kids at the orphanage who had only been there a little while. I've lived there forever, she never throws me a party, all she ever does is yell at me when I am bad or ignore me. It's not fair, he continues to rant in his mind as tears roll down his face. Really, I am a mother too, you know, Mikoto asked. I have 2 boys, 11 and 4, one is already a ninja and is considered the most powerful of his generation, the other is just starting his training and already he is showing promise. Another silence fell between the two women, then, besides, you were supposed to tell me about Naruto. Naruto is doing fine, he was being taken care of the last I saw of him, her voice dripped with satisfaction, as if she had done her duty to the village. There was another pause, this one ominous. Would you care to know the name of the prominent citizen attacked here tonight, Inoue Kaiu? Mikoto asked. A short pause followed, where they assumed the orphanage manager just nodded her head. It was Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, clan head of the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans. The Uzumaki, together with the Senju and the Uchiha, they helped found the Hidden Leaf village. He is the son of my predecessor, the Yondaime, Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina. Naruto is directly related to Tsunade of the Senju and consequently Senju Hashirama through his wife, Uzumaki Senju Mito, and when Tsunade sensei passes, because he is related to her via marriage and we do not find another Senju, he will inherit the Senju clan. The only reason she did not take him in and raise him, herself, is because he has his own legacy and they didn't want to distract him from it. Naruto was looking at the woman kneeling next to him, eyes wide as he looked at her to confirm what the Hokage was saying. Tsunade looked at him with a huge grin on her face and nodded, put a finger to her lips to quiet his questions. Why didn't you guys tell me about this? Naruto asked his parental avatars. We'll tell you as the secrets become relevant, Naruto. If we told you everything at once it would just overwhelm you, Minato explained. That's right, we'll tell you all our secrets as you need them, his mother continued. You need to trust us to tell you what you need to know, when you need to know it. You're right, sorry mom, he submitted, sorry dad. They mentally hugged him, making him feel warm. The pause now was like a canyon. Luckily, the attack on Naruto was thwarted and all but 2 of his attackers were killed in the attack. They've been taken to torture and interrogation. It won't be long until we know every disloyal action they've ever performed and who they performed them with against our village. If Marino Ibiki is working tonight, they will tell us where their grandparents hide their money. The night air was pregnant with menace, but the manager kept quiet, not intimidated enough at the veiled threat leveled by the Hokage. If a veiled threat did not work, the Hokage decided to go for direct threats. Now that we know Naruto is not in your custody, the sound of Mikoto's voice shifted. You will tell me who told you to put him in harm's way tonight, or Marino-sen's treatments will seem like a pleasant dream compared to what I will do to you. They heard a choking sound coming from over the wall. Mikoto had obviously grabbed Inoue by the throat. Inoue was trying to say a name. Mikoto loosened her hold but did not let go. Ashiro, he said nobody would care and we would be doing the village a favor by getting rid of the boy. She was blubbering by now. There was a crash to the dirt heard from behind the wall as the Hokage let go of the woman's throat. She coughed and inhaled rapidly. Then they heard a grunt of pain, then another, followed by 3 more in rapid succession. Tsunade and Naruto stood up just in time to see Uchiha Mikoto kicking the orphanage manager repeatedly. You make me sick, the Hokage shrieked. How many other children have you deemed not worth your time? They've been through enough trauma with the loss of their parents and you who is entrusted to protect and care for them until they can fend for themselves, deem their lives not worth protecting. By this time, Makoto had begun to stomp Inoue Kayu in the face and gut. Makoto was going in for more kicks when she felt a hand on her arm. Looking around with fire in her eyes and a snarl on her face. It was Naruto looking at her with pleading eyes. "You're too pretty to let this woman make you do ugly things, Koto-chan. The Hokage is supposed to seek justice, not reap vengeance, believe it." Makoto closed her eyes and turned her face away from the woman groveling at her feet, as if she had just stepped in something that she wanted to wipe off her shoe. "Up force, get this greedy pig of a whore out of my sight, keep her safe and alive until she can act as a witness at Ashiro's trial," she yelled. Then she raised a hand. "She must be alive and able to speak to be a witness, she doesn't need to be ambulatory," she added with a smirk. Inu, a silver-haired Anbu captain, appeared beside her. "Send a message to Ibiki, he should be in my office, and Advocate Ashiro should be with him. Tell Ibiki to take Ashiro into custody, and during their conversation, let Ibiki know that he has my permission to be as exotic as he wishes, as long as Ashiro is competent to stand trial." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath before letting it out slowly, releasing her anger and contempt. Makoto turned to Naruto, still clutching her arm. She took his hand in hers. "Naruto, please accompany me, I will be taking you to your new place of residence." "Tsunade-sensei, please come with us, I think something momentous has occurred and I want you to verify it with me." Home. 3 people walked along a lane leading into a residential neighborhood. The houses were close together, many sharing walls with their neighbors. While the neighborhood was not as affluent as the districts around the Uchiha and Senju estates, it was still worlds better than the area around the orphanage. They came to a 5-meter tall by 90-meter long stone wall, which was broken up in the middle by a 6-meter tall by 3-meter wide gate. This section housed a huge wooden gate. It was plain and nondescript, without any form of ornamentation. The wall itself was unadorned. It was whitewashed from top to bottom, with wood paneling, half the height of the wall. The wall and the gate section were topped with a pointed eave-style roof. Naruto's parents had grown quiet as they approached the gate. Naruto recognized it as the house he conjured for them earlier tonight while in his mindscape. Stopping in front of the gate, the party of 3 gazed at the enormous gate before them. Now, Minato and Kushina began issuing instructions to him. "Bite the pad of your thumb, son," his father said. Naruto did as he was instructed. "Place your hand upon one of the doors," Minato continued. When he did, the doors glowed blue for a second or two, and when the light faded, the door was ajar. "You may now come and go as you please, without biting your thumb again," Minato informed his son. Naruto may have been 4, but he was a precocious 4, perceptive, intuitive, and not a fool. "This was your house, wasn't it, Mom and Dad?" "Yes, Naruto, this was where we lived as a couple, and where you would have grown up if we had lived," Kushina answered her son. Naruto opened the door the rest of the way, allowing the Hokage and the leader of the Senju to enter a 10 by 10 by 6 meter area, stone courtyard, which led to the front door, a sliding door made of metal, which had a small oval on the doorframe. The oval was made of chakra metal, according to his parents. He closed his eyes, calling up his chakra. They instructed him, and he channeled his chakra into the oval. The door unlatched and slid open, and the gate closed behind them. "Now, you can enter and exit as you see fit, Naruto," his mother explained. "The house now recognizes you as its owner and master. Any seals placed on the grounds will respond only to you." "Welcome home, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," they chorused. When Makoto thought of a place for Naruto, her first thought was to bring him here. If he proved unable to enter, she would have found an apartment for him elsewhere. Tsunade and Makoto looked at Naruto as he moved through the house like he had lived here all his life. They shared a look of astonishment. They had no idea how, but he seemed to have access to Minato and Kushina's knowledge. "Naruto," Makoto said, "how do you know how to do all of this? You move around this house like you've lived here all your life, and that can't be true. No one has entered this house in 4 years, we've tried, but the true owners of this house were seal masters of the highest order." Naruto turned to look at the 2 women, and both his parents' eye in his mind. "While I don't think it would be a good idea to let the public know your dead parents live in your mind," Kushina decided. "I can think of no 2 people I've trusted more in my life than these 2 women, excepting your father, of course." Minato added, "I feel the same, and add my sensei Jiraiya and student Kakashi Haddock into the mix." "You 2 really trust them?" Naruto asked his parental avatars. He felt their nodding heads and sighed in acquiescence. "Okay, I will tell you, but only inside the house. Would you please tell your Anbu bodyguards to wait outside, Hokage-sama. They may stay in the yard but may not enter the house until I am done revealing to you and Lady Tsunade all that I am about to tell you." The Hokage summoned her Anbu detail and relayed the same instructions to them that Naruto asked her to. Naruto showed the ladies in and looked around his new home. The foyer was sunken with clay tiles for flooring and a shoe rack. There was also a crucifix nailed to the left wall to bless those who entered. They took off their shoes. Naruto placed his in one of the racks, while the ladies left theirs neatly by the step, toes pointed in the direction of the door. Together, they explored the rest of the house. It was a two-story dwelling, the entire ground floor had hardwood flooring and was set in a rectangular configuration. A short hallway straight ahead led them to the living room, which had a comforting feel to Naruto. Above the mantel over the fireplace, a pair of frames held some sort of designs, the one on the left kind of reminded him of the sun, the one on the right was a spiral. The furniture consisted of a navy blue three-piece sectional, a plush chair the same color and a tan leather reclining chair. They were surrounding a coffee table made of dark wood with two drawers. Back at the entrance, they turned right and went down a long hallway, at the end of which was a kitchen that had everything a kitchen needed, including a breakfast nook. Turning left took them to a dining room, a compact dining set filled the space with a streamlined table, surrounded by four ladder-back chairs. There they found a sliding door leading from the living room. Opposite the entrance to the living room, another sliding door led them into a 28 by 9 meter square room. There were more sliding doors to the left and right, but directly ahead at the front of the room was a two-sword display stand, and on the top rack was a tsurugi with a double-edged black blade and a tsuba that was a replica of the sun-like design in the living room and a white ivory handle carved like a dragon. The bottom rack held the sword sheath that followed the design of the handle. Itsuka no tsurugi, he heard his father breathe. I've never used it because I was never interested in kenjutsu, but the Namikaze Taijutsu can be used with or without a weapon. The empty hand movements translate perfectly to the use of our family blade. I remember when you would practice your kata, how fast your hands would move was breathtaking. Minato, my love, Kushina added, I can't wait to try to combine the circular movements of Uzumaki Taijutsu and kenjutsu with the speed of yours. Naruto listened to his parents as they discussed the fighting arts of their respective clans. Their conversation occurring in his mind in less than a second did not impinge upon his talks with the two women in his house. They returned to the living room. Naruto, offer the Hokage and Tsunade-sensei a drink, please, his mother asked him. Mother, any food here must be toxic waste by now, he reminded her. Not to worry, son, the preservation seals we place on all our storage compartments should still be holding strong, Minato explained. Any food and drink should remain viable for another 10 years, regardless of sell-by dates. Would either of you ladies care for something to drink? Naruto asked his guests. Thinking the same as Naruto regarding food viability, they quickly but politely declined. We need to be getting back to our evenings, so please, let us get on with our discussion, Mikoto requested while they got comfortable on the sectional, facing each other. Naruto closed his eyes and formed his hand into a ram seal and said, Kase Kasuru. The already strong privacy seals now became impregnable and nobody outside knew it. You wanted to know how I knew so much about this house and how I was able to use those chains to fight off my attackers tonight, right? Naruto guessed. Yes, Mikoto replied, as well as how you knew to call me Koto-chan, Tsunade gasped, to get my attention and speak to me and any Team 7 members privately. Tsunade spoke up at this. Naruto, how did you know to do that? Even if you were somehow able to see and read Team 7 mission reports, that way of saying Mikoto's name is not in any of those reports, Tsunade explained. It was Team 7's covert way of communicating with each other, never was it an official form of communication. So, how did you know about it? Because, my mother told me about it when she saw you. He turned to the Hokage while looking at you through my eyes, Naruto replied, then turned to the other woman in the room to show the sincerity in his eyes. He could see they still did not believe him, so he gave more evidence. Uzumaki Kushina and Namikaze Minato were married in a private ceremony, officiated by the Lord of the Fire Nation himself, he said, turning back to Mikoto, you were her maid of honor, and since she had no family, all of Team 7 gave her away. How? The last Senju asked. Those records were classified by the daimyo himself. They were sealed because Kushina is the daimyo's niece, making me the daimyo's great-nephew by marriage and a legitimate heir to his throne if none of his children can do it or choose not to do so, Naruto finished. Again, how is this possible? Tsunade asked. The only other person to know is Hitomi Hyuga, the fourth team member of Team 7, and there is little chance the two of you have ever been in contact. The Hyuga blowwords would never allow her to meet with a lowly orphan. Naruto sighed and began the story. It started tonight, right after they began beating me 3 days ago. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, 12 years old, sits in Seiza, in the middle of his family dojo. His eyes are closed, his mind is clear, calm, centered. Rising to his feet, the last member of 2 clans opens his eyes and begins to move through the forms and kata he has learned for the past 6 years. He has slowly combined the circular movements, submissions, joint locks, and throws of Uzumaki style with the powerful and fast as lightning punches, knife hands, spear hands, and clawed strikes and kicks of Namikaze style. The combined strengths of the styles allowed for a versatility of the style that few other styles could match. In the 8 years since coming to live here in his family estate, he has changed from a skin and bones whelp to a hale and hearty youth. Naruto has adopted his father's name and begun to fulfill the family legacy. Though the civilians still showed a blatant enmity toward him, they were careful to keep their opinions to themselves. At first the business owners tried to starve him by denying him the right to shop in their places of business and began to evict him from their stores and restaurants, all except Ichiraku Ramen, Hidori Dango, and Akimichi barbecue restaurants began to kick him out as soon as he would enter. This went on for about 9 months until he was 5 when he enrolled in the Ninja Academy of Konoha Village. When that happened, the Hokage issued the Konoha Ninja Patronage Act that decreed: as ninja are the pillars of defense and key players in Hidden Leaf economy, no business within Konoha Village may deny service to any ninja, regardless of rank, to include all shinobi and kunoichi, from academy students to the Hokage, without valid substantive reason. Such reasoning must be proven to the Anbu or Konoha police officer, who have been given clear guidelines on what constitutes a valid substantive reason. That prevented them from evicting Naruto from their shops, which did not prevent them from marking up the prices whenever he or another hated ninja entered their shops. Naruto solved that problem by buying himself some seeds and a few chickens that he could raise as livestock. His property was quite substantial, the size of a modest farm. Naruto sectioned off an area for a vegetable garden and built a coop. Naruto finished his forms, which were a nice warm-up. Now it was time to get busy with his training regimen. He crossed his left and right, index and middle fingers, and yelled, "Shadow Avatar." A perfect replica of the 9-tailed host puffed into existence. The shadow clone technique is an Uzumaki clan technique. It is listed as a forbidden technique because of the chakra requirements, so only Jonin and above can learn it. However, given the massive chakra reserves for even the children of the Whirlpool clan, and because it originated with the clan, all Uzumaki may learn it. The clone knows everything his original knows, they both have the same capabilities, it even has a chakra reserve to perform ninjutsu, and even some jinjutsu, if Uzumaki could perform jinjutsu. They have many uses and were used as scouting and espionage tools by the Uzumaki, since all experience and knowledge gained by the Avatar reverts to the original upon death. They are also the perfect evasion and escape tools. The original can substitute themselves with their shadow clone, no matter how far away they are from each other. Buke, Naruto yells, adopting a neutral stance. Hori, see Naruto yells and dashes at his creator, delivering a sweep to the legs. Naruto jumps over the clone's leg, who continues his momentum, placing both palms on the ground and bringing the opposite leg into a rising, circular back kick toward his creator's jaw. Naruto sidesteps behind the power of the kick, advancing a couple steps forward to launch a short kick jab right into the face of his clone. The kick connects, but the clone uses the inertia from the attack to rise and in doing so grabs the offending leg. See Naruto rises with the kicking leg, upending Naruto, who falls into a backward somersault ending on his feet. Grinning at his clone, Naruto yells, "Tori." Naruto advances normally without rushing until he is 6 feet from C Naruto when he lunges into a double palm strike, taking his clone by surprise. He falls backward, but applying good ukemi, takes minimal damage. Naruto comes in to stomp his clone, who rolls to the right into a kip up into a defensive stance. Naruto swings his left arm in a counterclockwise fashion, which C Naruto traps in an eagle claw around the wrist. Naruto smirked discreetly because the eagle claw was a feint. In a nanosecond, he folds in behind C Naruto, breaking his grip. Naruto picks up his clone, bringing him down on his knee, breaking C Naruto's spine, causing him to poof out of existence. The barrage of memories and experiences flood into Naruto's mind, showing him what mistakes he made. Mindscape. Inside his mind, Kushina, Minato and the Kyuubi were observing Naruto's sparring session. His parents were proud of him, his progress in martial arts was impressive for someone of his age. He was more advanced in taijutsu than most of the other students in his academy class. Only 2 students were his peer when it came to be fighting hand-to-hand. Sasuke Uchiha and Hinata Hyuga. All 3 of them, great friends from the beginning, had a friendly rivalry going. Sasuke was better at kunai throwing and arm taijutsu. Hinata was the best at chakra control and jinjutsu knowledge. Naruto, because of his 2 unique clan techniques and chakra reserves, was the best at ninjutsu and endurance. Kushina spoke up, "That was very good, son, ready for the next exercise." "You bet, mom," Naruto replied, voice brimming with confidence, but not arrogance, "bring it on." Minato chuckled, "Okay, boy, don't get cocky," he growled in half-serious admonishment, "now make 3 clones." "Reality." "Yes, dad," Naruto responded, making the sign for shadow clones again. "Multi-shadow avatar technique," Naruto shouted. There were 3 more puffs of smoke which cleared, revealing 3 more avatars of Naruto. These lookalikes did not wait, they knew why they were created. "Randori," Naruto bellowed. "Randori," C1 Naruto bellowed. "Randori," C2 Naruto bellowed. "Randori," C3 Naruto bellowed. The 3 clones bum-rushed their creator, each going into their own separate attacks. Deciding it would be stupid to stand his ground, Naruto dodged, ducked, and deflected in and around all their attacks. The object was not to fight and destroy his attackers, although that was allowed. No, the purpose of randori was to learn to be aware of multiple opponents and to react accordingly while keeping your strategy fluid. C1 sprang to his feet after his initial attack and went left to flank Naruto. C3 shuffled after his creator to keep the pressure up. While C2 stood back and observed, trying to come up with a plan of action. Naruto was aware of where his clones were, he knew how they thought because they essentially were him, and vice versa. The words, "overcome thyself," were taking on a literal meaning in this dojo. C3 moved in for a sweep at the same time C1 came in for a spinning back kick at his torso, they seemed to connect, when poof. C3's sweep connected a fraction of a second before C1's attack, but it was not Naruto it connected with because he substituted himself with C2. C2 was swept off his feet, but recovered enough to break fall and roll along his back gaining his feet. C2 was a good 5 feet from the other two. Naruto capitalized by moving behind C1 and shoving him over, so he fell on top of C3 still low from the sweep. They fell entangling their limbs, while Naruto moved to attack C2. He came in fast, launching punches at C2's body and tiger claws at his face. C2 parried the punches and dodged the claws, trying to buy enough time for his partners to recover. The other two clones had recovered and were attempting to use Naruto's distraction in the fight against C2 to ambush him from behind. Naruto was between his clones, and they struck. At the last second Naruto jumped high into a backflip and while in the air C1 and 3 hit C2 hard enough to dispel him, giving all three of them his memories. Minato was busy writing down the experiences of the clone using clones of his own. Their creator landed behind them and struck ruthlessly before they could recover from their shock. They took 2 spear hands into the base of their spine, hard enough to fracture their spinal column, it was also enough to destroy them. Naruto was breathing hard and heavily and rapidly. Mindscape, even Kikbi was impressed with Naruto's vindictiveness and said so, "Not bad kid, not bad." Many things had changed since Naruto was 4. The area of Naruto's mindscape housing the 9-tailed beast looked more like a forest of giant sequoias that dwarfed even the fox, with etchings of the seal in every tree. The chakra network represented as Mississippi-sized rivers with the Tenketsu as big as Grand Coulee-sized dams. Obviously there is no Mississippi River or Grand Coulee Dam in Naruto's world, I just needed examples. As Naruto's mind grew and expanded, so did his mindscape, because now there was the village, a replica of the village of Konoha had sprung up around their house. Everything that was in the true Konoha that Naruto knew about and had been to was replicated in as close to fine detail as Naruto could manage. The Uchiha compound, the Hyuga estate, every training ground and shop that Naruto had been to and could remember, the Konoha forest just outside the gates of the village, could be found in Naruto's mindscape. The only structure present was the replica of the Namikaze estate. This was where Minato and Kushina lived, they even trained here since old habits never die. It was also where they kept the archive of their son's days as a secondary memory source. The most interesting fact was that space and time were unlimited within the mindscape, space, time, and resources. I concur, his mother agreed, you displayed fluidity of mind and willingness to be flexible. I agree with your mom and the vixen, Minato supplied, plus, as ninja being sneaky and underhanded is part of the game, not to mention using your enemy's strengths and weaknesses against them are great tactics. Thank you, vixen, thank you, mom and dad, Naruto replied. You're welcome, sweetie, Kushina said back. Reality, now head outside and we'll finish your clan testing. Yes, mom, Naruto obeyed. Naruto walked out of the sliding glass door to a circular stone floor with a combined version of the Uzumaki spiral and the Namikaze cyclone. This was the place where he trained in kunai and shuriken throwing and where he trained in using the adamantine chains. Surrounding the circular practice area were a series of side-slinging catapults, about 12 total. Surrounding the catapult were a series of plum flower poles of different lengths, the higher Naruto was the least stable the pole. The heights ranged from 6 feet tall to 30. The catapults were angled up at various elevations from 90 degrees to straight up. Naruto proceeded to create 12 clones and hopped on a pole about 12 feet tall. The clones arranged themselves behind the catapults and loaded them with clay discs about the size of a human heart. The object was to be able to take out as many targets as possible while maneuvering along the poles using jumps and flips while maintaining one's balance on an unstable narrow platform. The clones took out a quarter Ryo coin. To keep it random each clone would toss the coin and whichever coin landed on heads that clone would loose the catapults flinging the discs. To this date Naruto has never gotten a 100% score, the highest he ever got was a 90%, Sasuke once got a 92% and his brother, Itachi, once got a 98%. Minato was the only person to ever get 100%, this was also where Minato practiced the Haration. Naruto got ready, all the clones tossed their coins, and Naruto got 93% that day. The next day, it was a Sunday, no school, and no training for today, it was in Uzumaki tradition. It was the Uzumaki day of rest, no work or training was allowed on Sundays, except missions, emergencies, and work necessary to day-to-day living, i.e. cooking, cleaning, and groceries using transformation technique. It was either that or pay high prices for goods that should be dirt cheap but seemed to skyrocket when he entered the store. There were some things he could not grow in the garden, and chicken could get boring to eat, no matter what recipe one used if that was all he ate. Naruto had just returned from the grocery store and was putting everything away when the doorbell sounded. Quickly creating a shadow avatar to answer the door, Naruto continued to work at putting stasis seals on the perishable items when his clone popped, letting him know the Hokage and her husband were in the living room. Creating another clone to complete the task at hand. Naruto took a pitcher of sweet iced tea out of the fridge and poured 3 glasses. He walked in carrying the drinks and placed them on the coffee table. Good afternoon to you both, Uchiha-sans. How are you both this fine day? Naruto, Fugaku fumed, what have I told you to call me when not in public, he asked in an irate voice. Naruto smiled, sorry, cousin, he chuckled. That's better, Fugaku grinned back, are you ready for graduation next week, kid? Believe it, cousin, Naruto replied, puffing his chest out proudly, I got 93% on the range yesterday, my techniques from Taijutsu were spot on, as is my strategic thinking, and I've been going over my academics to make sure I do well on the written portion. As Naruto was speaking, Mikoto sat fidgeting with her clothes as if she were uncomfortable with being there. She seemed to keep her hands folded in her lap and did not seem inclined to look up. Something's wrong, son, Kushina announced, Koto-chan never looks like that unless she's feeling guilty about something. Naruto spoke about his accomplishments, but instead of being happy for him, Fugaku's face also began to take on a sickly cast, his smile never left his face, but it took on a pained vibrancy. I agree with your mother, Naruto, Minato confirmed, that's the look Fugaku always got when he had to go tell the family of a downed-up force officer that their loved ones were never coming home. Naruto looked around his cousin to look at his godmother's uncertain countenance, observing her expression. Is something the matter, Koto-chan? Naruto asked looking her in the eye. The Koto was startled out of her reverie when he addressed her with that name, yes, Naruto something has come up and well, the village needs to ask you a favor. Naruto's eyes widened, okay, if it's within my power, I will do my best to aid the village, he affirmed, that's what we ninja are being trained for, right? That statement only served to exacerbate her guilt, I need you to fail your graduation exam. 3 days later at Hokage's office, the god-aim Hokage was using the crystal bowl remote viewing technique to keep a close watch on today's proceedings. Over the years the clan council noticed that the most successful ninja were the ones with skills and knowledge outside the ninja arts. So, to remain strong, students not only learned the ways of the ninja, they got an in-depth education in language and culture, math and science, as well as history and social studies. The Hokage did not want unlettered thugs filling her ranks, she wanted true ninja, and true ninja were never ignorant. The tradition went as far back as the Shodai and Madara Uchiha, as one of the few things they agreed upon up until their legendary battle at the Valley of the End. Of course, back before the restructuring of the government there were a few who thought general education was of little importance to a ninja. Some like Shiramura Danzo thought ninja should be little more than living breathing weapons, no matter how many records proved his assertion to be wrong. The Kodo always kept a close eye on the school, especially since her children and godson began attending. She made sure that the teachers employed at the academy were not only powerful shinobi, but well educated too. However, today one teacher had her full attention. He was the child of a civilian family, all of which were killed on the day the Kyuubi attacked the village. He was in the same class as her son and godson. He never showed any blatant enmity towards Naruto, there were just one too many mistakes that could have cost Naruto points. Mikoto had gone back through this teacher's mission records, including reports done by him, his sensei, and even his teammates. There was never even a hint of these kinds of mistakes and oversights in any of the records the Hokage examined. However, it was not the mistakes that were arousing the suspicions in the Uchiha woman, it was the fact that they had stopped. The last attempted sabotage had occurred 3 months ago, she may not want to bring her suspicions to the clan council yet, but her instincts told her Mizuki's mistakes were not mistakes, they were deliberate attempts to sabotage the son of her best friends. Mikoto Uchiha had listened to her instincts as a kunoichi for the Leaf and as an inspector during her up-force days, too many times when they had saved her life, not to heed them when they flared. Instincts, however, were not enough to make accusations against a shinobi under her command, it would undermine the respect she had earned from her ninja as Hokage. That did not mean the 5th Hokage could not launch an investigation. She could not do anything by herself, she is the Hokage after all, her presence would be noticed. Thus, she turned to 2 people she trusted most, her eldest and her husband. She briefed them on her suspicions when she got home to the Uchiha estate. She asked Fugaku to follow Mizuki when he was in the village and ordered Itachi to surveil Mizuki when he left the village. 2 months ago, after explaining her suspicions to her husband and son. "I know, it's a lot to ask, since I'm only going on my instincts," she admitted to her family, "and what I've observed through my remote viewing, and while my instincts have been wrong in the past." Mikoto stopped, looking down, she understood how lame that sounded. Fugaku came to his wife's rescue. "Your instincts may have been wrong before, Koi, that's true," he conceded, "but you've also never let your instincts rule you. When you were still on the force, it is true you let your instincts guide you, but you also never let them cloud your judgment, nor stop you from seeking the truth, which was why you were always one of our best inspectors." Makoto felt gratitude for her husband's assessment of her investigative skills. "Thank you, Fugaku Koi," she said, leaning into him intimately. Itachi's sweat dropped at the affectionate display. Even shinobi prodigies get uncomfortable when their parents get romantic in front of them. Ahem, their oldest child discreetly coughed, making them step away a little quickly. Fugaku straightened up, grunting, and adjusting his clothes incrementally. Mikoto had a small smile on her lips. "Yep, still got it," she thought proudly to herself. "You're my Hokage," Itachi said to his mother. "You don't need to give me explanations if you want to send me on a mission. Just enough details so that I can have a clear mission objective." That was 2 months ago, and they had found quite a bit about Mizuki's comings and goings. He liked to spend time at bars, frequented by civilians. He rarely went to ninja-frequented bars. While not incriminating, all citizens had a right to their preferences after all, it was just unusual. While in the bars he rarely drank more than necessary, until a certain drink, a Shirley Temple, was served to him, where he would tilt it back and drink it all in one chug. Then standing up on shaky legs, he walked upstairs to one of the rooms and remained there the rest of the night. After checking, they discovered the rooms he frequented were the rooms of several ladies and gentlemen of the night. They discovered that Mizuki would frequent their rooms on their nights off. The room was paid for using funds from Mizuki's own accounts, so no money trail leading to anywhere besides the man in question. The pattern of his visits remained the same for 5 weeks straight. Then 2 weeks ago, he stopped going to bars and began hanging out around Hokage Tower. The academy instructor began chatting with many of the kunoichi who worked in and around the seat of power for the village. Mizuki may have been flirting with them, and one of the few times Fugaku or Itachi could read his lips via the Sharingan and a telescope, that seemed to be what he was doing. That very well could be the case, except his eyes were frequently taking in their surroundings, of which he seemed to be romancing only kunoichi working in or near one particularly sensitive area, the cage technique vault. It held the most powerful and most dangerous ninjutsu in the village's arsenal, including the Forbidden Scroll. While all of this was highly suspicious, it was still not enough to bring him in for questioning. It was, however, enough for the Hokage to launch a full investigation, bringing in a couple more people. Shisui Uchiha, lead inspector for the Konoha Police Department and a master of Jinjutsu, and his girlfriend, Kurenaiki, captain of the Anbu Black Ops, clandestine division, and Jinjutsu mistress, call sign Cardinal. They were both briefed on the Hokage's suspicions and the information gathered up to that point. Kurenai befriended the chunin kunoichi Mizuki spoke with, who never divulged any sensitive information to Mizuki. They were smitten with him, but they were Leaf Ninja first, women second. Kurenai did discover something interesting about Mizuki. He was obsessed with only 2 things: gaining power and destroying Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. 3 days ago, Mikoto had gone to the Uzumaki Namikaze estate with her husband who saw Naruto as a cousin. There, the couple did what they had to do to protect the village. Mikoto's thoughts returned to the present. She gazed through the crystal ball into the schoolyard as Naruto arrived with her youngest and the heiress to the Hyuga, the Noha Ninja Academy schoolyard. Sasuke and Hinata walked through the gate of the schoolyard like they had every morning for the past 6 years. Today was different. This could be the last time they did so as students, because today they would be taking their graduation exams. By this time next week, they should be placed in their genin teams and begin their ninja careers. The other difference was a subtle difference, but noticeable all the same for anybody willing to notice. That difference concerned their best friend, Naruto. While he acted visibly the same, the way he seemed today was slightly subdued. He acted the same as he did any other day, highly energetic, with a side of goofball thrown in the mix. All of that was there, but there was an air of something else, it felt like resolve. When they met up on the way to school, the ever-present smile was on his lips, but his eyes had a look that said something was happening. It reminded them of his prankster look. This was the same stare, but with an edge. Walking through the school, they made their way to their classroom. Inside were the rest of their classmates, most seemed to be from the major clans of the village. Aside from Sasuke, Naruto and Hinata, there was Shino Aburam, Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamichi, Kiba Inuzuka with Akamaru, Ino Yamanaka, and Sakura Haruno. The rest of the class just did not seem to stand out, so they were largely ignored. As soon as Sasuke entered the room, all 3 of them were assaulted by a high-frequency sound technique, Sasuke-kun. Came twin cyclones of feminine energy, one cherry blonde, one platinum blonde. They swooped in to hug their crush, all but knocking Naruto and Hinata against the wall. The entire class wet dropped at the actions of the Kunoichi fangirls. Shino's insects momentarily heightened their buzzing at the suddenly loud classroom. Shikamaru raised his head from sleeping, then lowered it back down, muttering, "What a drag, I was dreaming of clouds," under his breath. Kiba, the dead last, and Akamaru also sleeping soundly until the banshees let loose their discordant song, jolted back in their seat and both just growled. Toji nearly choked on a chip. At that moment, the two teachers in charge of this class, Iruka and Mizuki, entered the classroom. "Alright, class, settle down and get to your seats," Iruka-sensei yelled, "and show some maturity, you just might graduate today." "That's right, you might," Mizuki-sensei said, casting a short look in Naruto's direction, "but even if you do graduate, the path of the ninja is a perilous life, there will be days when you do not know who your enemies are." Mizuki pointedly looked at Naruto, being from the same village is but a small guarantee for allies, otherwise there would be no chunin in the world. Only one person in the room noticed Mizuki's looks that day, Naruto, who could feel the eyes boring into his skull. The instructors of the class handed out the academic tests, which are equivalent to the 12th grade education at the high school that civilians attend, on the other side of the village. Naruto had just completed the written portion which he aced. In a little while he, and the rest of his class, would go outside to conduct the Taijutsu trial. Divided by gender, they would have a tournament. If a student made it to the semifinals, they got an 80, which was minimum to pass. The finals got them a 90, winning their gender got you a 99. To get a 100 they had to last a 3-minute bout with one of your chunin instructors. This was optional, but rarely turned down. After lunch, staying outside, the class would go to the confidence course to evaluate their throwing skill. The confidence course is an obstacle course to measure the student's capacity to throw kunai and shuriken. The minimum time to complete was 5 minutes. This was not hope and throw, each target was a human equivalent, with the vital points clearly indicated. The targets would move into various positions and then retract. The student had to throw and hit the target before it was gone. Hitting any of the vital areas was worth a full point, merely hitting the target was worth half a point, missing entirely, nothing. Each student received 10 kunai and 10 shuriken, the minimum to pass was 14 of 20, in 5 minutes. The record was 20 in 3 minutes, held by Itachi Nai. Then, it was back inside for the 3 standard academy ninjutsu. Transformation, substitution, and clone. These are pass-fail ninjutsu, not point-based. The students had to pass each portion of the exam, a failure in any part would fail the student for the entire exam. Each student got 3 chances to pass, if they failed all 3 chances, they were disenrolled from the program. Later that day, Naruto and Sasuke stepped into the ring, grinning from ear to ear. They were the last of the student matches, they had a 90. Hinata received a 100 after holding her own against Iruka. Whomever won this match won for the boys and had the option of fighting Mizuki. They listened with half an ear while Iruka-sensei reminded them of the rules and the time limit. "Ready?" he asked. Naruto and Sasuke formed the ram seal and shouted in unison, "Kai," removing their gravity and pressure seals. Taking a deep breath, Naruto and Sasuke stood in a ready stance, neither defensive or offensive, ready, and gave a slight nod to their sensei. "Hajime," Iruka-sensei screamed. Sasuke disappears to all students, though their sensei and the Ishin standing by to render medical aid when injuries occurred could follow his movements. Then suddenly, everybody hears a whistling noise, looking up they see him descending, with an axe kick at Naruto. It lands, leaving a small crater where Naruto once stood. Spinning above the crater, Naruto jump spins, aiming a kick at Sasuke's head, who sidesteps out of range, or so he thinks. Naruto lands in crouch, continued his spin, and caught Sasuke with a sweep. Sasuke feels himself beginning to take a fall, stretches his arms, and cartwheels to the side. Naruto, still crouching, attacks with a sweeping arm, his fingers in a dragon's claw, aiming for Sasuke's knee with every intention of crushing it. Sasuke turns into the earth dragon palm, raising his shin to take the brunt of the attack, robbing it of its power by intercepting it before the attack could build up inertia, and using one of the densest bones within the body made even harder by kicking a stone edifice hundreds of times a day, before and after school did not hurt either. It was still painful, but it was not harmful. Naruto trapped Sasuke's leg and lifted, dumping him on his back. Accepting the fall, Uchiha rolled with it and somersaulted backward, regaining his feet almost immediately. Sasuke launched a front kick at Naruto's gut, which Naruto allowed, grabbing Sasuke's leg, holding it in place, then hooked his feet out from under him. Sasuke turned the hook into a backflip kick that caught Naruto in the chin, knocking him on his butt. Naruto rolled with the fall to reduce the damage, while adding force of his own to backspring to his feet. This time, Naruto vanished, coming to Sasuke's right side, who sent a back fist at Naruto. Naruto, accepting the direction of the strike, caught Sasuke's arm in an unusual hold. He only used the index, middle, and thumb, the eagle claw, cupping Sasuke's wrist joint. The other hand clutched Sasuke's elbow joint from above, using all 5 fingers, in the tiger's claw, would have crushed a lesser person's bones, but Sasuke had hardened more than just his leg bones. Naruto applied the appropriate force, turning the trap into a joint lock, effectively gaining control of Sasuke's body. The fingers of both hands were piercing into a nerve bundle that caused Sasuke's entire arm to go numb, but the maneuver was not over. In a fraction of a second, Naruto moved to finish his technique. Arresting tornado, Naruto shouted. Naruto accepting the force and adding some of his own pulled Sasuke off balance, meeting Naruto's leg below Sasuke's center of gravity, causing him to flip over the leg. Which would not have hurt him if Naruto let go of Sasuke's arm, which Naruto did not. The arm in Naruto's hands remained as unmoving as a mountain, the rest of Sasuke did not. There was an audible crack and Sasuke screamed in agony. The maneuver dislocated the radius and the ulna from the humerus and disassembled the wrist bones. Sasuke could not continue and forfeited the rest of the match. The Kodo, Fugaku, Itachi, Shisui, Kurenai and Hiruzen hissed in sympathy as they watched the test from the Hokage's office. Everyone clutched their arm as if they were the one receiving the catastrophic injury. The medic ninja were there, stabilizing Sasuke's arm. Nobody seemed too worried about Sasuke's injury, not even Sasuke. It was painful, no doubt about that, but it was far from a career-ending injury. Since Tsunade Senju became head of the hospital, the staff at the hospital and all medical ninja have become the best in the elementals. Injuries like Sasuke's could be mended in a matter of minutes and have no effect on his performance later. Naruto was allowed a few minutes to recuperate from the match before Iruka-sensei called him and Mizuki-sensei into the arena. "Are you two ready to face each other?" Iruka asked his student and colleague. Mizuki's smile looked inviting but carried an undercurrent of menace. "Yeah, let's see what you got, Naruto-san." Naruto looked up at his sensei, then waved his hand to halt the activities. "As much as I want to throw down with my honored sensei," Naruto said, bowing deeply, "I'm afraid I must decline." This announcement took everybody by surprise. Nobody had ever turned down a chance to earn that one extra point. There were shocked expressions from nearly every person present. Mizuki's eye was twitching and he was barely able to keep a sneer from his face. "I realize it's unusual for a student," Naruto continued, "but I have to think of this test as a mission, and the objective of this mission is to pass the test and graduate, not get a 100 in the Taijutsu portion." Mizuki grinned. "You know that's the kind of logic a true ninja should possess," he said with an overly indulgent smile. "That's a commendable attitude to have, Naruto." Iruka was as stunned as all of them, his eyes as wide as dinner plates, shook his head coming back to the present. "Yes, that's right, that's a good way to look at this test." Mizuki was a little slower to respond. "I agree, this examination should be viewed as your first mission," he said glancing at Iruka, but then returned to staring at the Jinchuriki of the 9 tails. Naruto's eyes stayed on Iruka, only glancing at Mizuki briefly, but he could feel Mizuki's eyes boring into his skull. "Right," Iruka said, breaking the stalemate, "let's head to lunch so you all can recuperate before the rest of the exam." After lunch at Ichiraku's raiment stand. The rest of the exams were uneventful and were standard across the board. Sasuke got 100% for the confidence course in 3 minutes and 5 seconds, Naruto took second place for it. After which, they all went to take the ninjutsu exam. One by one all the ninja in training went in and completed their tests. Finally it was time for Naruto to complete his tests. He entered the classroom bowing to Iruka-sensei and Mizuki-sensei, who returned it while staying seated. "Are you ready, Naruto?" Iruka asked. Naruto popped tall, shoulders straight, chest out. "Oh yeah, sensei, I'm gonna ace this portion, believe it," Naruto exclaimed. Both chunin teachers chuckled to themselves. "That's good, Naruto, keep that positive attitude. It'll make taking you down that much more satisfying," one of them thought. Without warning, Iruka threw a baseball right at Naruto's face. It struck him, then a puff of smoke later, a chair was in Naruto's place. "Excellent use of the things in your environment, Naruto," Iruka-sensei praised. "Now, make 3 clones of any type," he ordered. Naruto made the cross seal, and poof, out of the smoke stood 3 perfect replicas of the demon brat. All 3 bowed before another poof dispelled them all. "Very good, Naruto," Mizuki acknowledged. "Okay, last technique, remember you have to do all 3 to pass, understand?" "Yes, sensei," Naruto replied, "I understand perfectly." "Good, now transform into the Hokage." There was another poof and what emerged only looked like the Hokage because the color of the hair and skin were her shades. Other than that, things were different. Let's just say certain womanly assets were emphasized more than they should be. The Hergless figure traveled from her chest down to her hips. Let's just say she was the classic bombshell. Makoto Uchiha was watching the test from her crystal ball, watched the transformation with her husband, son, nephew, his girlfriend, the elder Sarutobi. Makoto blushed until she was redder than the Sharingan. Fugaku's bloody nose burst like a fire hose, launching him to the other side of the room. Itachi and Shisui began to feel the sweat drop as they watched their mother aunt in a sexier body type. Kurenai was outraged at the objectification of women. The screams of outrage, lust and disgust would have been heard all over the village if the Hokage's security seals were not activated. Sarutobi was on the floor with his own nosebleed and thank Kami-sama, Tsunade was working at the hospital today or Naruto would be dead right now. Back in the testing room, both teachers were picking themselves up after their own nosebleeds. Naruto looked down at himself and eeped before his face went pale. I don't know what went wrong, I was going for the Hokage as I thought of her. Naruto looked down ashamed of his performance. May I try one more time, sensei, I swear I'll get it right this time. I'm sorry, Naruto, Iruka replied, but everybody else was able to do a proper transformation the first time round, and since there is no proper way to find out how accurate you are, we're going to have to fail you for this exam. Come on, Iruka, Mizuki pleaded, he performed so well on every other part of the exam, surely we can make an exception, just this once. Iruka just shook his head sadly. No, Mizuki, Iruka replied, there are no exceptions to this exam, everybody who passes this exam has been able to perform these techniques with only a minimal amount of aid. Hell, last year one student used soldier pills to give him the proper chakra boost to perform them, he was born with deformed chakra coils. Somewhere on a stealth training mission Rock Lee sneezed and gave away his position. If we didn't make an exception for him, how can we for someone else, without any handicaps? Mizuki nodded and looked at Naruto. I'm so sorry, Naruto, he said quietly, but you fail this examination. Later, Naruto sat straddling the old swing, tied to the tree across from the entrance to the school. Most parents had come and gone from the school with their children, some to celebrate their new ninja, many to console or berate the failures. Naruto had not even the luxury of disappointing his parents because they knew he was not supposed to pass the test today. His transition from civilian to ninja had already occurred. The success or failure of his first mission was in Mizuki's hands now. 3 days ago, Uzumaki Namika's estate. I need you to fail your graduation exam, the Hokage requested. Naruto grinned and was about to laugh thinking she was joking, but she was not kidding, she was serious. What, why? He had a look of betrayal. Was she like everybody else? Was it some political bullshit she had to bow to? Son, Minato broke into his thoughts. The Hokage would never ask something like this unless there was a reason, so please listen to what she says with an open mind. Naruto listened to his father but was on the fence until his mother spoke up. I agree with your dad, Naruto. I was looking at Makoto-chan's face before she asked. This was tearing her up. She wouldn't be asking this if there wasn't a very good reason, Kushina added urgently, before continuing with a growl, at least there better be, or I'll kick her ass myself. Naruto looked down at the floor, then at the woman and man he considered his parents in all but blood. After all these years, Naruto's ability to read the intent in people's faces has not waned, it has merely grown stronger and more nuanced, to the point where very few could con him if he could see their faces. He read the guilt and anxiety on their faces. They would give anything to not have to ask this of him, but were outvoted by necessity. Please, tell me why, godmother, Naruto implored. Would you please fortify the house against eavesdropping, Naruto, Mikoto asked her godson. Naruto closed his eyes and formed his hand into a ram seal and said, Kase Kasuru. The already strong privacy seals now became impregnable and nobody outside knew it. Okay, this house is now proof against any known eavesdropping technique. So, please, tell me why you want me to fail the ninja exam. Mikoto and Fugaku tell Naruto about her suspicions and the circumstantial evidence regarding Mizuki. How they believe they could dangle Naruto out like bait to see who takes a bite. The reason why we want you to fail the exam, Naruto, Mikoto concluded, bait needs to be vulnerable, and what better way to be vulnerable than for you to fail the exam? Naruto contemplated his Hokage's eyes while taking counsel with his parents and even Kikbi, who is a predator, could not agree more with Mikoto's thoughts on prey and bait. After the conference with his tenants, Naruto shared his thoughts on the subject. It'll be tricky, Koto-chan, Naruto supplied. I have shown off many of my abilities in the past. I am the best in Taijutsu in the class, second best in Kunai Shuriken Jutsu, third best in breaking Jinjutsu. If I do this, it would have to be a skill I have not shown off in the past, Naruto added, as his parents leafed through his archives to discover an aspect of his skills he has not shown to anybody. There. His parents shouted, pointing their fingers at transformation. I have it, ma'am, transformation technique, during the ninjutsu portion of the exam. The Uchiha couple looked at each other and thought, it wouldn't be unheard of for a student to excel in everything else, only to fall short on even one of the standard techniques, Fugaku mentioned. True, but I am surprised Naruto has never displayed his transformation abilities, since most of the pranksters in the past have used it at one time or another to pull off their misdeeds, Mikoto said, looking pointedly in Naruto's eyes. In his mind Minato's sweat dropped and Kushina turned her head and giggled quietly. Naruto scoffed and added, amateurs, if you have to resort to transforming to get away, then you're not doing it right, he exclaimed, half the fun of pranking is the thrill of the chase when you're caught. The two adults in the room and the two in his head were looking at him with a raised eyebrow. Anyway, the other reason I never used it was because it's another clan-based technique that I was planning to unveil at the test to wow the teachers. So, you'll do it, Naruto, Makoto asked, you'll fail the test. Naruto thought it over some more. Yes, Makoto-chan, he said nodding, I will fail the exam at school. Oh, thank you, Naruto, she said, bounding over to hug him and kiss him on the cheek. Naruto had a goofy grin on his face when she let go. Makoto was a beautiful woman after all, and Naruto was at that age when he will begin discovering women. They have been there all along of course, he just never took the time to notice. Of course, Hokage, Naruto added, I am a loyal son of the village, after all. However, that does not mean I will do it for free. Loyalty is one thing, but if you get something for nothing, you may begin to take it for granted. The happy Hokage nodded her head in agreement. Sure Naruto, I'll do anything within reason in repayment for this service. Do you remember when I said I'd fail the ninjutsu portion of the exam at school? He asked. Makoto Uchiha nodded and Naruto continued, that doesn't mean there cannot be an examination on the portion. I will be intentionally failing. What are you saying, Naruto? Fugaku asked. I'm saying I want to take the ninjutsu test here tonight and upon completion of the mission, have those scores substituted for the ones I get at the academy, Naruto answered. Makoto thought it over, that's not a bad idea, she concluded, it'll mean you're already a leaf ninja, and you'll get paid for a B going on a ranked mission, which is good for your record. She looked at the young man with a baleful gaze. 2 questions. 1. You won't be issued a headband, nor have official ninja status until after the mission is completed, will that be okay with you? Naruto just nodded, I didn't become a ninja for the headband, and only partially for the status. Okay. 2. For it to be valid 2 clan heads have to agree on the results. Are you sure you can perform the technique to their satisfaction? Nearly all of them have higher standards than the academy instructors, she said, indicating her husband. Yes, Okage-sama, I do believe I have what it takes. Then he thought, which other clan head could you get, one that you trust enough to bring into the conspiracy, on short notice? Makoto thought some more, the only 2 elders that are clan heads, Sensei and Sarutobi. She looked at her husband apologetically, I think they can be objective and evaluate him fairly. I think if we do it, we may end up giving him credit just because we're grateful. 2 hours later, it took no time at all for the Hokage to summon 2 of the 3 elders in her advisory council to the Uzumaki Namikaze estate. Hiruzen, clan head of the Sarutobi, former Sandaime Hokage, was known as the god of shinobi and the professor because he was headmaster for the ninja academy. Hiruzen arrived last. Naruto answered the door and greeted him with, hey, old man, Naruto said, with a gleam in his eye, ready to learn something new tonight. Sarutobi answered, with a gleam of his own, I believe, I'll answer that to the true Naruto, thank you. The avatar's mouth hung open. How did you know, Jiji-san? I thought shadow clones were. His mouth hung open. You didn't know until I confirmed it, did you, Sarutobi-sama? Hiruzen chuckled and walked past the young man, maybe. Naruto lowered his head in defeat. Anyway, everybody is in the dojo. The Hokage will brief you on why you're here and thank you for coming on such short notice. The clone closed the door, locking and bolting it before dispelling, immediately letting his creator know what happened. Down the hall, after stopping to remove his footwear, Hiruzen entered the dojo of the Uzumaki Namikaze clan, bowing to pay respect to the dojo itself, if not to the nearly extinct Uzumaki. There, he found the current Hokage, Makoto Uchiha, with her husband, head of the Uchiha clan, Fugaku, chief of the Konoha police force. Beside him was one of Sarutobi's own students, Tsunade, head of the Senju clan and administrator of the hospital. Ah, Makoto spoke up when he entered. Hiruzen dono, thank you for coming on such short notice, however necessity dictates haste in certain situations. Think nothing of it, Hokage dono, Sarutobi answered urbanely, being a former Hokage made him technically equal in rank to the current Hokage, even if he was officially below her, and thus, when not in formal settings, could address her as an equal. As former Hokage, I am well aware of the power of necessity. He bowed in respect as he spoke. He turned to his former student, how are you doing tonight, Tsunade-chan? Tsunade smiled warmly at her sensei, I am doing well, then politely asked, how about you, Hiruzen-sensei? Quite well, actually, Hiruzen replied with a smile of affection for her, before turning to Fugaku, well it seems the ghosts of the founders are all present tonight. He turned back to the Hokage, would you please fill me in on the reason why we are here, Hokage dono? Yes, Makoto began, well for starters, I am having some doubts about one of the teachers at the Ninja Academy. Having nothing to go on, save my investigative instincts, I asked my husband and my son Itachi to surveil this person to see if my instincts were accurate or unfounded. Hiruzen nodded, approving of the way this Hokage chose to exercise her power. Too many Kage of the 5 great nations, particularly the Yondaime Mizuki, would have felt suspicion was enough and ordered the suspect's arrest or torture. What were the dividends of your surveillance, Hokage dono? Not enough for suspicion to lead to accusation, but enough to warrant an official, discreet investigation of said individual, so in addition to those I have mentioned above, she answered. The third, I brought in 2 additional people, my nephew and chief inspector of UPF, Shisui, and his girlfriend, recently promoted, Jonin, Kuranaiki, both well known for their genjutsu prowess. She proceeded to tell him everything they discovered about Mizuki, including his obsession with power and recognition and the destruction of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. We are not certain which is more important to him, power and glory, or his hatred of Naruto. More specifically, the Kikbi no Kitsune, since we know that his entire family was killed in the attack 12 years ago. Sarutobi nodded sadly. I can understand his hatred, though I do not agree with it. White, Tsunade agreed, but that doesn't explain what sensei and I are doing here, Hokage-sama. I was coming to that, Tsunade-sensei, Mikoto said. We have decided to dangle some bait and see what swims to the surface. To that end, Fugaku and I came to Naruto tonight and made a request. She stopped for a second, the guilt still eating at her conscience. We asked him to fail his graduation exam next week. There was silence as she said that. Tsunade and Hiruzen had shocked expressions. While failing the exam was not the end of the world, since Naruto would have 2 more chances, it was still a lot to ask even for the Hokage. What did he say, Kodo-chan? Tsunade asked in a clipped tone. Mikoto winced at the use of her codename as a rebuke. She cannot deny that she deserved it. She was not feeling like a good Hokage right now. She sighed. Fortunately, he agreed and figured out the perfect place to fail so it would not look suspicious. The ninjutsu portion. Hiruzen, impressed with his surrogate grandson's humility and cunning, commented, that is commendable, but I still fail to see the reason for summoning us here. Mikoto smiled in agreement. I am coming to that, Sandaime Dono. She paused, taking a deep breath. He was willing to help us, but there was a price. Naruto wants to take the ninjutsu portion here tonight and have the results of tonight's test transferred to the official test after the mission is over. Sarutobi and Senju eyebrows were buried in the hair, which was a great feat for Hiruzen with his receding hairline. Then understanding dawned, and they began to laugh. He is his mother's son, Tsunade added, looking at Mikoto for confirmation, who barely nodded to confirm her thoughts on who came up with the idea. Hiruzen smiled. I see elements of Minato in it as well. That's right, and to make sure we were not just passing him out of gratitude, Fugaku began, we decided to call in 2 unbiased testers. Mikoto nodded in agreement with her husband. Too true, I mean, I've allowed for the possibility that I could be completely wrong about Mizuki, or he may not take the bait. That's why I've kept the investigation as quiet as possible. Not even the clan council are aware of our investigation. Good, Hiruzen said, it has been quite some time since I have conducted the elementary ninjutsu exam, then looking at his student and with a bow asks, shall we get started my dear? It shouldn't take long, we must only endure 3 techniques, yet I wish to be as formal as possible. Tsunade nodded. I agree, sensei, it would be disrespectful to Naruto to treat it like a joke, she said looking around. She spotted the raised section where Totsuka no Tsurugi normally rested but was now on an altar, flush against the wall. Let's kneel in front with the altar behind us and have Naruto enter, come forward and present himself to us. The Hokage and her husband exited to the living room. When they were ready, they sent the signal for Naruto, sitting at his dining room table, to enter. He reached the area in front of the 2 clan heads who were kneeling on pillows on the dais. They indicated Naruto to kneel in seiza, which he did and bowed forward until his forehead touched the floor. After raising his head, the testers began to speak. Uzumaki Namikaze-san, we will tell you when, and you will perform the 3 standard academy ninjutsu, understand? Hiruzen instructed. Naruto replied, hi, Sarutobi-sama and Senju-sama. Okay, think fast, the old man yelled, throwing a blunt kunai at him. There was a poof of smoke and Tsunade caught the kunai because she was suddenly where Naruto was kneeling, who in turn was standing next to Sarutobi. Tsunade laughed. How did you do that? I did not feel you grab me, she asked, more curious than angry. I did not grab you, Senju-sama, I grabbed your cushion, you just happened to be sitting on it. By the way, you're way too light, don't you ever eat anything? Naruto asked. I was going for Sarutobi-sama, but he was able to block me, somehow. Next to him, Naruto could hear Hiruzen trying to stifle a chuckle. That was pretty good, Naruto-san, you were fast enough to select a target, have it countered, and then select another in time to complete the technique, Sarutobi replied, qualifying his remarks. You pass, with distinction. I concur, Tsunade said in admiration, clearly impressed by Naruto's ability to think on his feet. Returning to their original positions, he obviously passed substitution, do a transformation, she ordered. Instead of a puff of smoke, Naruto's body seemed to liquefy before it flowed into the shape of a grey wolf. He was anatomically perfect, from the tip of the snout to the length of the tail. Even Sarutobi was shocked. Naruto-san, what kind of transformation is that? He asked as Naruto returned to his true form. It is another drawback for the massive Uzumaki chakra coils, we cannot produce illusions, from Jinjutsu to clones, that includes transformation. The yang can never balance properly with the yin. We call these true transformations. We can become any creature we are familiar with, it requires the same amount of chakra as my cage bunshin. It doesn't use hand signs, but you have to know everything about the subject you're changing into, which means it's probably not a good idea to use it for impersonation, but is perfect for evading pursuit. Tsunade spoke up, just from a medical standpoint, how deep does the change go? Naruto was confused for a minute before understanding dawned, quite deep, my mind is still human, everything down to the cellular level is whatever creature I become, I can even change gender. I even have a menstrual cycle when I'm a female, yet only in my true form can I reproduce. Sarutobi broke in, how does it work, Naruto-san, he asked, back in professor mode. Naruto thought, then supplied, well, for me to change into a non-human, I studied and learned as much as I could about said animal, starting with the library, then I volunteered at the Inyazuka Veterinary Clinic to learn their anatomy and behavior. Finally, I put together everything I learned about said creature in my mind by visualizing it. Even after all that, there is still some trial and error before you get it down properly. Birds are the most complicated creatures I have tried to become, all those fine bones and feather textures that are necessary for flight in the tail alone, don't get me started on the wings. Naruto realized he was talking too much and noticed that they were gaping at him, which made him self-conscious. What, something wrong? Sarutobi cleared his throat, no, Naruto-san, just a lot to take in, that's all. Let's proceed, shall we, Tsunade said, Naruto make at least 3 clones of any type. He nodded, made signs, and thought, multi-shadow avatars, 3 shadow clones puffed into existence, bowed together, how did we do, they asked in chorus. Excellent, you did it without speaking out loud, which most ninja never figure out, the old man grinned, and, you performed all 3 ninjutsu, flawlessly, but with distinction and innovation. So, after careful consideration, we've concluded, Tsunade said with a smile, you pass this portion of the graduation exam. Naruto crowed, out loud, hurrah, he said, jumping for joy. They looked at him as he celebrated his victory before bringing him back down to earth. Remember, Naruto-kun, the third Hokage reminded him, you must still pass the other portions of the exam as they come, there is nothing even the Hokage can do to waive those portions. I understand perfectly, Naruto said, sobering slightly, I still have a mission to accomplish, this was just the confidence booster I needed, now that I did, the rest should be a cinch. Back at the schoolyard. After the official exam, the Hokage had come without her hat and robes, which meant she was not the Hokage, but a mother now. She hugged her son with a squeal of delight and gave Naruto a sympathy hug, which was a little tighter than normal. Naruto did not know if she was mad over the transformation technique or distressed over sending him into this mission alone. Even if he did not need to use it, he had added the smokescreen to hide the actual transformation. Hinata's family had sent an escort from the Branch family to bring her home. Therefore, Naruto found himself alone on the old rope swing in front of the school. It was not a complete act, he was truly feeling dejected. When the time came for team selection, they would be 1 person short, that could cause the teams to be unbalanced, which could cost Sasuke or Hinata their lives. I am so sorry, Naruto, said a voice behind him. Naruto, screaming like a little girl, leapt off the swing and into a defensive position. There, standing behind him was none other than Mizuki, who laughed like he had just pulled the ultimate prank. Naruto gave him a dirty look, Mizuki-sensei, don't do that to me, it almost gave me a heart attack, he admonished. My apologies, Naruto, I wasn't trying to sneak up on you, you were just so out of it you didn't hear me approach, Mizuki replied gently. Naruto's expression was now sullen, yeah, maybe that's true, I just don't know what I'm gonna do with my life now, as he spoke, his tone went from sullen to miserable. What are you talking about, Naruto, Mizuki asked curiously, you have 2 more chances to take the test. Naruto's eyes widened with realization, then returned to disappointment, you're right, Mizuki-sensei, he conceded, but, my best friends are going on without me, there is no way we will be on the same team now. Mizuki smiled knowingly, you're best friends with Sasuke Uchiha and Hinata Hyuga, correct? Yes, Naruto admitted. Mizuki continued in a lecturing tone, then there was very little chance, you would have ended up on the same team anyway. He continued after getting the bewildered look from Naruto, if you'd passed, you 3 would have ended up being ranked in the top 3 together, no Hokage has ever put the top 3 on the same team. To do so would cause said teams to become unbalanced. Normally, the dead last, in this case Kiba, is put on the same team as the Rookie of the Year, Sasuke, and then the student that was in the middle is added as the 3rd member, in this case Sakura Haruno. Plus, there's the Ino Shikacho tradition, which in your class is Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji. You can probably guess where you would have ended up after those groupings, Mizuki concluded. Naruto blinked, then his mind returned to the present, yes, I understand, but now that I screwed up, they're going to be 1 person short for the teams. Shino and Hinata are going to be one person short when they go on missions. What if that person could mean the difference between Hinata and Shino coming back alive, Mizuki-sensei. San, Naruto, call me, San, Mizuki demanded. I am not your sensei anymore, so that honorific is inappropriate now. Mizuki told him, but he seemed deep in thought, then his eyes widened like he just got a brilliant idea. In fact, it's because I am no longer your sensei that I can clue you in on a way to earn some extra credit that could be used to allow you to pass. Really? Naruto asked in excitement that he did not have to fake. This mission could be over sooner than I thought. How? He reduced his excitement level and tried to act cool. I mean, what do I have to do? Mizuki laughs at Naruto's antics. Well, I have been given a kind of mission to test the security of Hokage Tower, and I plan to do that well by trying to steal. Later that night, the siren began to blare all over the village. Within seconds the ninja of the village were reaching the positions they were assigned in general emergencies. The ninja not assigned a permanent post rallied to the Hokage for their assignments. That's where they found out what happened. It was Naruto, the Hokage informed them. He has stolen the forbidden scroll from the Hokage vault, she told them. Mizuki and Iruka had expressions of shock, only one of them was genuine, then other ninja began to voice their opinions. This isn't just a prank, Hokage-sama, this is treason, one shinobi offered. He should be tried and executed, there is no excuse for this, another said. Makoto bowed her head, but kept her eyes on the two teachers, then sighed, raising her head. Fine, the first order of business is to get the scroll back, by any means necessary, try to do it without hurting, Naruto, she said in a sad voice, but if you must, I will understand. Makoto looked at all of them, not lingering on the teachers any more than necessary, dismissed. They were all gone before she closed her mouth. After their departure, she had a smile on her face. Good luck, my precious godson, it's up to you now. Her smile changed to a worried grimace. Please be careful. In a darkened part of the forest, Naruto was running and jumping and leaping through the trees with a giant scroll upon his back. He was almost to the rendezvous point Mizuki team specified, and he was disgusted. That was the most pitiful excuse for security I have ever seen, he mused to his parents. No kidding, Minato agreed, it seems the village has gotten complacent since I was Hokage. Yeah, Naruto's mother supplied, no offense, son, but a genin shouldn't be able to steal something so valuable. It should at least take a team of jonin to even get to the vault, let alone steal something out of it. Naruto shook his head, none taken mom, and I agree, with people like Orochimaru out there, or you for that matter, the village really needs to update its security protocols. Naruto reached the cabin in the woods, although shack, tool shed, hovel were better descriptions than the word the traitor used. He took the scroll from his back. Okay, mom, dad, I'm here, any suggestions? Well, Kushina said, you're supposed to spend time learning a technique from it, why don't you open it up and look through it? Are you sure mom? I mean there must be a reason these techniques are forbidden, he thought dubiously. I see no issue with it as long as you listen to us about what to learn and what leave alone, Minato added in agreement. Many of these techniques were termed kinjutsu because of the chakra usage. Naruto thought about what his parents were saying, okay, but be prepared to copy all of them into the archive just in case. Naruto began to study the jutsu in the forbidden scroll. The Kage Bunshin was of no interest since he already knew it. He did learn the summoning technique, plus summoning resurrection to an impure world since that might be beneficial for his parents in bringing them back to the world. He also learned the secrets to sage art, and right below that was a seal that read Six Paths Legacy. It had a chakra seal on it. Naruto's curiosity got the better of him, and on a whim, he channeled his and Kikbi's chakra into the seal, just to see what would happen. The purplish chakra he used 8 years ago to bring his parents back into existence came forth and molded into the chakra seal. In a puff of smoke, out of the seal came the image of a tall, pale-skinned man who had deep wrinkles and a strong jawline in his elderly age. He had spiky, shoulder-length pale red hair with a chin-length braided lock hanging in front of his left ear. He also sported a goatee, which was tapered down to his waist. The old man had a pair of horn-like protrusions extending from either side of his forehead. He also had a red ocular marking in the center of his forehead. This man wore a white full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatama around a high collar, beneath which he wore a necklace which was also made up of 6 black magatama. On the back of his kimono was a larger black ocular marking with a pattern of 9 magatama arranged in 3 rows of 3 beneath it. The man gazed at Naruto as if appraising him. He seemed to have eyes that could see right through anything. They sort of reminded Naruto of the eyes of his friend, Hinata. Hello, to you descendant of mine, my name is Hagoromo Motsutsuki. Naruto gasped, the sage of the sixth path, no way, he exclaimed, my name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, genin of the Konohagakure no Sado. Naruto's parents were gaping as they looked out at the world through the sun's eyes. Naruto could feel the man's power radiating from him like heat from the sun, and this was just his image. What would it feel like to stand in his presence? Even his parents were silent with respect and Kikbi, who was cowering in his cage with his tails between his legs. "Wait," Naruto said, "you called me your descendant, how can that be possible?" The sage smiled, "Well, when a man and a woman get together." "Wait, I don't need the birds and the bees talk, my father and mother already gave it to me," Naruto said, blushing blood red. "I meant it's been over 2000 years since your death, how do you know I am your descendant?" The sage grew serious, "Because only my descendants, coupled with the chakra of my sons Asura and Indra, could have opened that seal just now, plus I felt the chakra of Kurama and only one of my blood could hold any of the tailed beasts above 5 and not be destroyed. For now, please take my word for it, as I don't have much time, I must unlock your birthright for you before I am too weak to do it." Faster than the strike of lightning, Hagoromo launched his hands toward Naruto's eyes. Mindscape, Naruto's world went dark and he seemed to be hearing voices. They sounded like his parents and the sixth path speaking, followed by the sound of a child being spanked. Then Naruto felt his consciousness return, he woke up in his mindscape. He was in his parents' house, they were sitting around his bed. "What happened, Mom, Dad?" he asked. "The sage gave you a gift before the last of his chakra dissipated, he balanced your chakra, giving you equal access to yin and yang release, which will help you cast Jinjutsu, you just have to learn some Jinjutsu techniques," his father answered. "But the infusion and the fact that you are a direct descendant of his mother added, digging into a nightstand, "He awakened another part of your DNA that allows you to access the Rinnegan," she said, holding up a hand mirror. On Naruto's face, where his normal violet eyes were previously, he found 2 new sets of eyes, with a ripple pattern that spread out over the eyeballs. He looked at his mother and his lip began to twitch. "I don't have your eyes anymore, Mom," he said, burying his face in her chest, and he wept. At first, she was taken by surprise until she remembered that despite his maturity, he was still a 12-year-old boy who looked enough like his father to be his twin. Little boys are more attached to their mothers than their fathers, so for him to lose the one physical characteristic that linked him to his mother's family was heartbreaking. She gathered Naruto up in her arms and rocked him while smiling tenderly. "Oh, my little man, it takes more than physical characteristics to make somebody family. It will also take more than a dearth of such characteristics to take me away from you, you're my son whether you have my eyes or not," she said while kissing him on the forehead. Naruto looked up into her face and asked, "Do you mean it, Mom?" he asked tremulously. "Every damn word," she answered, "besides while you were out and before he left and after he whipped Kurama's ass for that stunt he tried to pull when you were 4, he taught us how to help you with them, including how to deactivate them." Naruto's smile could have outshined the sun if it were up, "So, you see you'll still have my eyes." Naruto sat up looking around and spotting his father. "Sorry for the waterworks, Dad, it's the only visible part of me that looks like Mom," he said sheepishly. "Naruto, it takes a strong man to cry," Minato reassured his son, "just don't start crying over the little things like injuries or a beautiful sunset or something." Minato moved forward smoothly. "Now we've got a few hours before you're scheduled to meet the traitor here, let's get started on one of the powers of the Rinnegan, we'll start with the path of Naraka." Reality, Mizuki stood balancing on a tree branch looking down upon the demon brat. It had taken him longer to shake the other ninja than expected, he was later than usual to meet Naruto. Naruto sat kneeling on the ground next to the shack Mizuki found when he was a genin that nobody seemed to use or even own. Mizuki jumped to the ground and approached Naruto. In addition to his chunin uniform, Mizuki carried 2 Fuma shuriken on his back. "Naruto, did you get the scroll?" Naruto opened his violet eyes. "I did, Mizuki-san, it was laughably easy to get it," he said with a chuckle. "The Hokage really needs to update security procedures. If a genin like me could get that scroll, then traitors like Orochimaru wouldn't break a sweat." At the name, Mizuki flinched. "Yes, well, that's exactly what the Hokage wanted to know." Mizuki held out his hand. "Why don't you hand me that scroll and I'll take it back to the tower," he said. "You wait here and I'll send somebody to get you and award your extra credit." Naruto grinned wider. "You must really think I'm stupid, don't you, Mizuki team?" Naruto's eyes began to ripple outward away from the iris until there were 6 lines. "News flash, Dumbus, hatred of your enemy doesn't automatically make them your inferior. I don't have very high regard for Konoha," Naruto admitted. "In fact, there are some days, like my birthday, where I despise the very existence of this village, and if not for but a few of its inhabitants, for which I have fond feelings, I'd have washed my hands of these savages years ago. That doesn't mean they are beneath me or are any less noble than me," Naruto added, getting back to his original purpose. As Naruto ranted, Mizuki's face twisted from affable educator into an ugly mask of twisted loathing. "What's with those eyes, they must be demon eyes," Mizuki thought. "You're correct, you little demon brat, hating you doesn't make you inferior to me. Tell me, have you ever wondered why the whole village hates and detests you?" "This ought to be rich," Naruto mused. "Enlighten me." "Do you remember in class when we went over the Kikbi attack that happened about 12 years ago?" Mizuki asked. "Yeah, what about it?" Everybody, born on that day and after, was told the fourth Hokage killed the beast, Mizuki said, but that's impossible, no mortal can kill a tailed beast. The only thing to do with it was seal it into a person, anything else would be destroyed. The only creature capable of holding the beast was a newborn infant. Mizuki trailed off because Naruto finished for him. Because an infant's chakra coils have not yet fully formed, Naruto finished for his former teacher. So, Minato Namikaze sealed the Kikbi no Kitsune into me, his only son. That's a pretty great sacrifice, because to complete the sealing he had to call upon the power of death itself, which requires the soul of the caster. Mizuki's eyes got even wider, and that's when Naruto struck, Naraka Path Technique. Sanj plus Va. On Naruto's fingers a set of fiery iron claws grew out of his fingernails. Before Mizuki knew what hit him, Naruto raked his claws across his ex-teacher's face. Mizuki screamed as he felt the claws rip into his flesh. "Tell me, Mizuki team," Naruto demanded, though he was calm, "if I really was the Nine Tails, why would I waste my time remaining in this form? The Kikbi no Kitsune is said to be the most powerful of the tailed beasts. If I was the demon fox, I could have broken loose and laid waste to this place or taken possession of this boy's body and escaped by throwing myself into the nearest ravine. If what you say is true, then killing this body won't do much more than inconvenience me until I reincorporate. Why waste my time remaining in this insignificant village when I could be shot of it?" Mizuki recovered from his agony quickly and drew his kunai. "I always knew you were a demon," he spat. He really had no answers for Naruto's questions. When a hatred has been ingrained as long as Mizuki's has, there is nothing this side of the grave that can shake it loose. Naruto smiled viciously. "I'm gonna show you the difference between the true demons and the tailed beasts, bastard, when I send you to hell." Multi-shadow avatar technique. There were several puffs of smoke, followed by 30 new Narutos, all with the same glowing fingernails as the original. They attacked en masse. By the time they were done, Mizuki was nothing but a smoking pile of meat. Then going through several hand seals and slamming his hands into the ground, a giant head rose from the ground and opened its mouth. 4 Narutos deposited the remains in the mouth of the King of Hell. Several minutes later, the Hokage, her husband and son, nephew, the Sandaime, the head of the Senju and Kurenai, landed in front of the last Uzumaki Namikaze. They landed in front of him with several Anbu and UPF police officers. They saw Naruto's eyes. "You have the Rinnegan?" Mikoto asked. There was a point where the crystal ball was no longer receiving an image, which was why we got here so fast. Mikoto came forward and hugged him. "I was so worried something happened to you," she said with a clear voice, but her body was shaking slightly. "Give me a brief report on everything that happened here," the Hokage ordered. Naruto began to tell her everything from the time Mizuki asked him to steal the forbidden scroll, to how easy it was he said in rebuke, to when he went through the scroll and found the seal containing the Sage of Six Paths chakra. He told them how the sage acknowledged Naruto as a direct descendant of his, through his sons, and balanced the yin and yang of his chakra so he could cast Jinjutsu and awaken the Samsara eyes. Then, he told them about his fight with Mizuki and how it ended. "I wish you didn't have to kill the traitor. We'll need him to confess," she asked, stepping back to look at him. He was grinning from ear to ear. Naruto let go and moved Mikoto back a little. "Stand back, godmother," said. Then went through the same hand seals as before and slammed his hands into the ground. Summoning. "The King of Hell," he shouted. The huge head rose from the earth and opened its mouth. Suddenly, an ear-splitting scream came from the orifice. Out of the opening, Mizuki rose and stumbled out into the forest floor. He would have kept running if the Anbu and UPF officers had not tackled and brought him to face the Hokage. He looked up and saw Naruto standing there next to the fifth. When he saw the boy he cowered and disgraced himself even further. Everyone there wrinkled their noses. "Keep him away from me, please," he begged. "I'll tell you everything I've done, even where to find Orochimaru," Mizuki was shouting toward the end. Naruto grinned at him like a predator would his prey. "I told you I would show you the difference between a real demon and the tailed beasts. I never go back on my word, Mizuki, that's my my way of the ninja. Take him away, make sure he is hale and hearty for his trial," the Hokage ordered. "Don't worry, Mizuki, depending on which religion you believe in, you may or may not be going right back to where you were. I hear there's a special place in hell for traitors." The guards took the traitor away. The Hokage turned to Naruto and took something from up her sleeve. "Now, Naruto, I believe you forgot something this afternoon after your test." She held up her arm showing him a hidden leaf headband. She extended her hand and he took it. "This one is just temporary until I can find one that I know you will appreciate." Naruto nearly welled up. He had company too because his mother was bawling her eyes out. He tied the headband on his forehead. Then there was a tap on his shoulder and when he turned before he could finish his question, there like a pillar of fire, standing behind the Naruto was the Hokage. "That was an interesting transformation you did of me today, Naruto-kun," Mikoto asked with a twitching eyebrow. Naruto gulped, then heard his mom say, "Time to take your medicine, son." The next thing we see is Naruto go sailing off into the night sky with Makoto's boot in his ass. What if Naruto black chakra chains chunin exams harem? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.